Good everyone, and welcome back to COVID Conversations. Today we have a really special opportunity to speak with, I think, a leading light in the business community, Rachel Taulelei. Rachel has unique insights into our food and beverage sector. She is a member of my Business Advisory Council. She's also part of the APEC Business Advisory team and is currently working with Indigenous food and beverage producers, Kono. Rachel, it's awesome to have you with us here today. And Clark's just walked into the back of the shot. But with you both, it's really wide. You set up the shot.
That's awesome.
Rachel, it's awesome to have the chance to be able to speak with you today. Before I get into some questions, though, tell me about your bubble. How's it going as a mum?
The bubble is going fairly well. I think that after a couple of initial growing pains, let's call it, and we've only got family inside our bubble, so there's myself, my husband, my daughter, and my brother and his dog. It's gone well. We've had a lot of personal learnings about ourselves, but also each other that have made things a little bit easier. In fact, we went on a walk yesterday, and I always make them take photos, which they hate, and also made them talk about the one learning that they've taken away from this time. So it's good.
Anything good out of that?
Yeah, like I learned that my husband is super calm, really calm. I mean, I knew that before, but he's definitely come to the fore on this one. That my brother's a voracious learner, that Lily is ready to roll with anything at any given time, and turns out that I might have control issues. So, complete shocker. Never saw that one coming.
And so, how is it for someone with control issues working in an environment right now, food and beverage, which is, and as an exporter, and you've worked in that space for a long time, how does it feel to be in a situation where there's just such a lack of control right now?
It was tough, actually. It crept up on me a little bit. I've got to say, I wasn't quite sure what the emotion was, but the first 2 weeks after the initial announcement of lockdown and alert level 4, we were obviously deemed an essential business as a food producer, and that was, amazing. It was a real privilege to be put in that position, and so we wanted to treat it with great care, as did the rest of the primary industry. So we threw ourselves holus bolus into creating a framework for safety for our team, because they took fright. They wanted to stay at home and be at home, as is the messaging, which is the correct thing to do, but equally we needed to keep the wheels turning on food production. So 2 weeks were fairly frenetic, I would say, and so I guess in that environment you're in your happy space, so you're moving and you're running and you're providing guidance and direction and setting up communications with the team, so that part was fine. Once we got to the end of the first or second week, when that was in place, and then it became, well, how do we just work in this environment? It slowed up a little, and that's when I really felt it. I thought, well, now what's my reason? What's my gig? And you just redirect yourself and repivot and assess those energies. And I think a lot about where you get your energy from, which has been really helpful.
Actually, a lot of businesses are really just coming into a phase that you've already been through and have just come through, and that is preparing a business to work in a space where you're having to be really mindful of new health and safety protocols, social distancing, and just really upping those basic hygiene measures in a workplace. You already work in food production, so that will be top of mind, but can you tell us a little bit about what you did with your workplace?
Yeah, it's been a really, this might sound unusual, but it's been a very rewarding experience being able to work with a strong team and know that you need to make sure that your bench is as strong as your leader might be. And so to bring the whole team into the space and say, what will we do given here are MPI's expectations, or the government's expectations of us? Here's our here are our industry groups, where it be it New Zealand Wine Growers or Aquaculture New Zealand or Hops or whomever it might be. Here are their expectations of us, and here's our lived experience and our reality of actually being in the business and doing it. So how do we marry all of those? And what we did is we sat down, we zoomed down as a team, and we just concertinaed in and out without attaching ourselves to the right answer straight out of the gates, which is a real temptation of being in business, is that you want to nail it straight away. And given that there is an urgency around this, we tried to resist the urge to do that, because we had to take our time to make sure that it was right. So we came up with measures around hygiene and people's movements and accountability for your movements when you weren't with us. And I think that will be really important for businesses as they go into level three, or at least if they reopen as we get into level three, is to think about there's the time that your people are with you and you have got relatively good controls in and around that by spacing and hygiene and convening and contact. Then there's the time when they're not with you. So it's really important to take the time to speak with your team and convey the importance of that time as much as you do the time that you spend at work.
A really fantastic message, because it sounds to me that means that you've been having conversations all the way through with your workforce, with your Cornwall family. What kind of role have they played in helping to get you back up and running in the new circumstances?
We've done a couple of things which I really love, and I know that we'll continue after this. So we created a closed Facebook page for our team for whoever wished to jump on there. I do live streams a couple of times a week where people can come on and ask me questions, and there's been a noticeable change in the cadence of questions, how many we have coming through, and the types of things that they're about, because the better the communications are, the calmer people can feel in their movement. So a couple of live streams a week from me. And then also I run a couple of sessions a week, and I call them virtual water cooler chats. So they're the kind of chats that you might have if you ran into each other in the office at the water cooler. They're Zoom calls, so they're face to face. There is no agenda other than if you wish to turn up, turn up. We have a chat, we talk about dogs and baking and frustrations that people might have, and what they're seeing when they're out in the streets. And it's very casual, but it's a way to connect where you might not be otherwise.
What kind of feedback have you been getting about those?
I think, well, they tell me good things because I'm on them and I'm hosting them, so they're amazing. But look, I think generally they're good. People keep showing up, people keep chatting with each other. And I think it's one thing to create a forum for those sorts of conversations, but what is really heartening to me is to see people speaking to each other through them, whether it's the Facebook page or in another forum. And I can see them encouraging each other. Small comments like, I really love what I saw you do at work today. Oh, that's a great idea what you've done with your bottle of hand sanitizer at home. I'll better do that tomorrow. So it has a life of its own, and I think if you create the right environment for your team to feel calm and supported and communicated with, it will be a much easier experience.
How do you keep morale up in a large workplace when you're losing the ability to have that social time you'd usually have?
That is where all of the written and virtual communications are one thing, and I think that they're important, and you have to use different kinds of mediums to get information shared with your team. But we rely, as a business who has been working on site, on our general managers and on our team leaders and our two ICs to really be those people on whom everyone relies. And that's a big responsibility for the team when you can't necessarily train your team for this kind of experience. I mean, the virus has, I think, confounded all of the science world and the academic world and the economic world. And so then to, I think, put the responsibility on people overnight, you really start to see great leaders and great leadership come to the fore. And we have no end of great stories, and in the pānui that I do weekly to the team, there is a good guys section, and the stories are everywhere. We had 3 skippers who immediately decided to lock down together on the vessel that they work on, and when they're not on the vessel they are at home, so away from their whānau for the whole month. We have had our trade marketing executive move to the Awatiri into a caravan that basically has a toaster in it, and she has become the COVID coordinator over there. So these sorts of little things are everywhere because I think it comes from a very genuine, humble place where people know the need and are ready to fill that.
You make an amazing point, though, about this being something that has confounded people. So in a way, it's a great leveler for everyone to bring their ideas, because there's no singular person who can tell us what to do with the future now. It's all in our hands. So
there's no handbook. I wish there was. That would be
there's
great.
No handbook.
But there's no handbook.
But if we were writing the handbook for New Zealand and for, say, exporters or for our food and beverage producers, what does that look like? You're an ex-US Trade Commissioner. What do you think the future looks like?
I think, and not to be naive or Pollyanna about it, I think that we have a golden opportunity as a country to build on our position as a world-class producer of food and beverages, but even more so now than ever, a trusted source of safe and premium food products. So the messaging has been there, the messaging has been very strong, but it's not been largely distinct sometimes from other countries in a similar position. But I think the given through the work that through the work that you have done, through work that the citizens have undertaken in response, we're proving ourselves to be a very collegial, collaborative, very committed nation of people to our safety and by extension others. And I think that that's a platform for us to build on. It's relatively unprecedented.
And so, in that sense, you see a good space for our primary producers in particular to, I guess, either bounce back where they have perhaps seen a dip, and many haven't, but also just come back stronger.
I think so. I mean, I think what is the alternative really? You either, as our business has, and we've sought direction from a couple of people who have participated in high impact events. I asked Malcolm Johns from Christchurch Airport to come and speak with our team because he has been through a couple of really high impact events. And the only way really to know how to respond is to have experienced. And so, one hopes this doesn't happen again, but I bet the next time it does, we respond in an even stronger manner. So in our conversations and I noticed this through the business industry actually, in the business community, is that there has been a period of survive conversation. There's definitely been and that won't stop, a strong theme of how do we survive this? How do we pivot? How do we make sure we can get all four wheels back on the track? Then what I'm seeing emerging is this growing conversation around, well, how do we thrive out of this? And I know that words that I've heard being used are recovery and reimagine. And thrive is just another one of those ways to describe how do you draw a line in the sand and appreciate what's potentially a very dire situation for a number of our businesses, and in particular our small and medium-sized businesses, and how do you take all of that innovation and wily ways that we have within New Zealand and come out of this strong and maybe even stronger than we were. So I've had in my bubble, as I said, my brother, and he runs with my father and my mother our family business, which is a concrete paving business. And I felt greatly the privilege of having a team when they are a textbook definition of a small business. And so I can only imagine, having seen that experience, the number of hours that businesses like that have just burned thinking about how they exist. So it's been, it would be, I think, naive to think that this isn't going to be the end for some of our businesses.
And so, what kind of, our character traits of resilience, and of course, what we're trying our best to do is just where the virus has really had an impact on businesses who, of course, want to keep their employees going, want to essentially be in hibernation so they can come out and thrive. We can play that role, but we can't innovate for our business community. We can incentivize it and encourage it. What do you think, though? What kind of creativity and innovation do you think we should be really trying to support in the aftermath if we're making the most of those opportunities out the other side of COVID?
I think that private and public collaboration is absolutely key at the moment. I think you're right. I think it's really difficult for government specifically to lead that innovation for various reasons, and they're not negative, they're just facts. But the private sector, it is their job to be innovative. It's our role to think about our business first and how we might undertake our business and how we might, as I said, pivot our business and do things a little differently than we have previously. And I think the role that government plays is to clear the path, some of that innovation. I think it is to enable it, whether it's by investment or intellectual capability or any number of enablements that the government can provide. But the business of innovation is that of business. But the partnership, I think, is really important, and you can see that happening in a number of places. I mean, the calls that I've been on the last couple of days, the Te Hono call, which we had about 35 primary sector leaders on yesterday. We also had chief executives of state sectors, state sector organisations, and also a couple of ministers. This morning with Tim from Allbirds, equally we had Minister O'Connor on. So I think that what is great about our ministers is, there's a lack of ego there, where they know what their contribution can and should be, and equally they're very happy to just enable that conversation to happen.
And so coming then to some of the, obviously you're working on food and beverage and hugely connected to those within our Māori economic development space as well. Tell me a little bit about what you're seeing or what you're thinking is for Māori businesses out the other side of COVID-19 as well.
Yeah, I think it's interesting with Māori businesses and Māori economy and Māori generally. When you look back at events of this nature, by and large, the most vulnerable sectors of society are the ones that fare less positively. I think that Māori at the moment are keen on seeing national and coordinated leadership, that we're keen on seeing how we might take the data, or at least have access to data, so we can use that in a predictive manner for how we could respond collectively to that. I think we're hardwired for survival, but I think that being philosophically ready for something is not the same as how that reality might play out. You can't have it be by default. So philosophically, we have survived lots of ails over the years, but that, as I say, by default doesn't mean that this will follow in the same suit. I think that we have to be really concerted in our efforts to understand the challenges. I think that we have to value what's been happening at a local level. So it's been really encouraging to see local hapu and whānau and community responses, because they know their people and they know their community and they know what the solutions to those relatively bespoke challenges might be. And I think to allow, again, that concept of allowing space for that to happen is important as we move forward. So to resist that urge to place a universal response when actually, not all of these things are the same. And I think it's okay for that to have a distinct and unique response.
There'll be young people out there as well who will be wondering what their future is going to look like now. We've lost a lot of predictability, and we've lost it in a really short space of time. Some, of course, who might be coming to the end of their education and be thinking about job opportunities that might look a little bit different than they would have even 3 months ago. Do you have any specific messages for young people coming into a working environment right now around where the opportunities exist and just what they might do?
Yeah, I guess as a starting premise, I think our young people are amazing. I think that they are the most liberated, smart thinking assets that we have amongst us. And I think that we need to create space for their voices to be heard. I think that we need to keep encouraging entrepreneurial training and enterprise training, the likes of which I participate in through Young Enterprise, those sorts of programs which take just germs of ideas and give our young people the confidence and then latterly the ability to actually bring that to life is more important now than I would say it has been previously. I think there's a job to do to now connect the demand signals between industry and our training institutions. And actually that's a call on our industry as well, where previously I don't know that we have committed to saying in 5 years or in 10 years, we need X kind of people, X kind of skills. We should be demanding that of our industries so that we can feed that directly back through into the training institutions, so we're not training in a vacuum. Yeah. The future of work for me was always pretty front of mind, and I think this has brought that all the way forward. But creating spaces and places for creativity and innovation is really important. And in times of economic depression, that's when you see really great ideas come to the fore, because they have to. So if you look at what happened out of the GFC, we got great high-tech companies come through like Vend and Green Button and Power by Proxy, that they come out because at this time by and large, there's
That's
more
what we create.
yeah, better opportunities. That's what we create because, you get backed into a corner and our very nature is to come out and think about how do we leap out of that corner? How do we come out of it boxing? And those high-tech jobs create, or those high-tech companies create high value jobs, and that has a halo effect for everyone, whether or not you're a tech head, which I'm not, but if you're a tech head or not, those companies are they're the germs of the Rocket Labs and the Zeros and those really light touch, scalable companies that I think this sort of experience makes more possible than it did previously.
So it's probably a matter of making sure that our young people believe that they can be the next founder, curator, and entrepreneur behind those companies at the same time.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of, and I suppose this speaks to the idea that we need to really invest in our human capital and perhaps less on the hard skills than the soft skills. So the more social, emotional, relational skills that do give them that confidence that anything is possible. So I can turn my hand to this, or I can turn my hand to that, but either way, I'll be okay.
Yeah, which just gives that extra sense of security at the same time too.
Yeah.
But for consumers, you obviously working in the food and beverage sector, you're an exporter, but equally wanting to encourage Kiwis to support locally grown, locally made. What message would you have for New Zealand consumers right now?
I think that where we've always had a choice, we have an even greater choice now when we are going to throw the gates open and whenever that happens as to who we invite back into our lives and who we choose to support and motivate as businesses. So I think that applies to us as individual consumers. So I think we'll see people look for businesses who move and behave in good ways. I think that on a broader scale, when we start investing in sectors and industries to help their viability, and sustainability as we go forward, I hope that we tag our funding with a demonstrable commitment to be good corporate citizens. So, take a positive position on water, start using renewables, pay the living wage, whatever that commitment might be. I really, really, at my core, hope that we do that because we have this opportunity to reward and motivate people who are going to best represent us. So yeah, I think it's the power of choice is now
Yeah.
even greater than it has been previously.
I love that idea that you've just expressed around being conscious about who we're inviting back into our lives because, we've restricted right down all of our spending and our activity be out of necessity. And now that we're opening back up, just being really thoughtful about where we're going and why we're going there and who it is that we're, making sure that we support.
I think
Um,
so, and it's a tough one as well. I'm absolutely a proponent of the buy local and support local, 100%. But I'm always really cognizant that we're an export nation, and that if everyone all of a sudden is living and dying by buy local, that will be very problematic for us as a country.
so just buy local in New Zealand. Just
Yeah, like if you're an American,
everyone else just buy well.
exactly. You guys buy us, and we'll buy us, and everyone will be fine. So I think, if Americans only started buying Sonoma, Napa, and Oregon wine, we specifically will be a bit knackered. So
Yeah.
I think I think it's a broader point about supporting good and supporting conscious and committed companies and what they're doing. Mm.
I think it's a good message to have.
So it's not like totally killed international trade because that won't be the winner, but equally that is a really tough one for New Zealand. We move through the world with what's probably a hard fought privilege of operating in a transparent, rules-based trading system. We rely on the WTO. We count on them not only being in existence but being strong.
Yeah.
And my fear presently is that the world, as it moves into a very batten down the hatches mode, might become so wildly protectionist that no matter how good we are here, we can be gold plated here in New Zealand. But if the world won't let us play the game, that will prove to be, I think, one of our greatest challenges.
And that's something top of mind for us at the moment. So far with the COVID response, we've seen that actually people are in positions where they're really seeking out quality, healthy, and food and beverage products that they can trust. And thankfully, New Zealand continues to fit into that category strongly. But I think you're absolutely right. We are in a position at the moment where people may choose to batten down the hatches, and we need to make sure that we can continue to trade successfully in that environment. So we'll keep working on that.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
I think you make APEC and ABAG. It's a bit sort of, how will we do that?
Yes. Well,
Gold.
we already are, and I think that demonstrates that consumers are still making choices that are outwardly focused, even if we see that physically they're physically, closing off the risks, which are people. They are not closing off products, but we are also an exporting nation that does trade in goods and services. So there are still some big challenges there for us.
Yeah. So much of this, I think, is our ability to be supportive of the economies who do support us, and I think that's where that staying in conversation and the importance of ensuring that there is a sort of free flow of information and conversation and support is super important. And I think that even though there might be an initial retraction, probably forced through fear more than anything, that will people will start breathing again and they will relax that position and
Yeah.
move
Yeah.
again.
Well, Rachel, thank you so much for spending some time with us today, just talking about the realities in your space, but also particularly your insights of being a business that's been operating while we've been in lockdown, just to give a few little tips and tricks for those who might be transitioning back into being in the workplace under COVID-19. We've really appreciated your time and your thoughts. Very best of luck.
Thank you, my pleasure. Good luck to you too.
Ngā mihi.
Ngā mihi.